If you notice, in the first reading, Moses' retelling of the Exodus story was not about what Israel did. It was about God, what God did for Israel. And that, in fact, is the way that Israel thanked God and praised God. You see it many of the Psalms, but in other places too. When Israel wanted to thank God, she told a story of whatever God had happened to be doing, whatever she was thanking him for. And we actually took that over. We do the same thing in our liturgy. Listen closely today in the preface, you'll hear a recounting of something that God has done. And even in the Eucharistic prayer, every Eucharistic prayer, just to take one little section, what we call the institutional narrative is where we say how Jesus took bread and took wine, etc., etc. Even we call the prayer the Eucharistic prayer. That Eucharist means thanksgiving, So this is the way the church has taken over from Israel. It's the way of thanking God is saying what God has done and recounting God's deeds. The other night at the fish fry, someone asked me a question that I'm asked all the time. You're asked probably all the time. You've asked other people. What are you going to do with your Lent? What are you going to do for Lent? This year may be influenced by this novena of surrender that I keep praying. This occurred to me, and by the way, that's a perfectly legitimate and good question to ask. What are you going to do with your Lent? I'm not disparaging that question in any way. But these last couple weeks, I've been thinking that perhaps another question, just as legitimate, just as good to ask is, what does God want to do with your Lent? What does God want to do with you in this Lenten time? We often think about the spiritual life as active in the sense of we do this, we do that. And sometimes we can get a little muscular. That's kind of the way I talk it with our spiritual life. And again, I'm not disparaging, and clearly we do things. We're called to do things, right? But the truth is, we don't become holy by our efforts, right? Becoming holy is the work that God does in us. Conversion is not what we do so much as what we allow God to do. We allow God to change us, to change the way we think, to change what we value, to change how we act, Our actions flow from our new values or new thinking. And our three practices of Lent are easily understood, and again, it's fine. Easily understood is what we do. Okay, I'm going to pray more. I'm going to give alms. I'm going to fast. I'm going to do this. But I just want to suggest to you this year that to consider maybe to think of these things in a different way. Instead of praying as, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pray more. Prayer as I'm going to open a space where God can speak to me, where I can listen to God, hear God, Fasting, not so much, okay, I'm going to give this up, give that up, give up, but maybe I'm going to rid my life of some of what Bankemper calls, referencing French spiritual writer, divertissement, things that divert me, things that I fill my life with that just kind of distract me. Maybe think of fasting in that way. What distractions can I get rid of so I can be more attentive to God and to others this Lent? You know? Even almsgiving, you know, think of it not so much in terms of, okay, I'm going to give this or give that or do this or something. But what superfluous stuff in my life, first of all, could I empty my life of? And then of the gifts that God has given me, like what gifts can I not just use for myself, but let others have the benefit of these gifts? It might be money, time, clothes, whatever, you know. It may look like the same thing in actuality, but the difference in your thinking, the difference in the way you approach it, might help greatly. That we allow God and allow ourselves to realize this and think about this more and more, that our growth in the spiritual life is not just about, okay, we do this, but let God work in us. Allow God's presence to fill us. Allow space for God to work. Allow space for others in our lives. Just offer you that as a suggestion for this Lent.